Our third and final presenter is Nina Lamarre. Nina Lamarre is a member of the class of 2019. She is involved in the Game Changers program, the Key Club, and is the cartoonist for our school newspaper, The Spectrum. Nina chose to participate in TED because she wanted a chance to step out of her comfort zone and to start conversations about issues that she is passionate about. Nina is fascinated by languages and thinks that it is extremely important to expose ourselves to new languages and cultures throughout our lifetimes. This is what led her to choose her topic of monolingualism. Nina believes that monolingualism is a growing problem in the United States that often goes unacknowledged. She is excited to be part of TED this year and can't wait to watch her peers' presentations. Please welcome Nina Lamarre to the stage as she presents The More, the Merrier, the Drawbacks of Monolingualism.
Hay menos cosas que me gustan más que las lenguas. Español es mi pasión, pero algunas personas ven los que hablan un otro idioma como sucios y menos de válidos. Hi. Thank you. I can remember the first time I understood Spanish outside the classroom. It was a Saturday, and I was trying on bathing suits in the dressing room at Target. As I struggled with the strap, I overheard two women outside the door. "Es demasiado apretado," one of them said. "It's too tight." At the time, this didn't mean much to me. I continued, struggling with my strap, and then went about my day. I was in 9th grade, in my 3rd year of Spanish. Like most 15-year-olds, the implications of language learning weren't exactly at the forefront of my mind. But as I've gotten older, by a whole 3 whopping years, and more attuned to the world, I've started to realize something. Learning languages is really cool. And what's more, being monolingual kind of isn't. Monolingualism. If we deconstruct that word a little, its definition is simple. Mono, meaning one, and lingual, having to do with language. If you're monolingual, as I'm sure a fair number of us in this room are, you're fluent in only one language. And no, knowing all the words to Despacito does not make you fluent in Spanish, as I've learned the hard way. And if you happen to be both in this room and speaking more than one language, I applaud you, because you're in the minority here. Now, I know the whole monolingual versus bilingual debate is not of interest to everybody, but it should be. Monolingualism might not seem like a disadvantage in the modern world, especially if you speak English, but things like this are worth taking a closer look at. Today, I want to focus on 3 ways that being monolingual inhibits us, or rather, the ways that being bilingual offers others a leg up. Cognitively, economically, and socially. The United States likes to label itself as something of a melting pot, with countless cultures creating a diverse cacophony across the country. This is not the reality, at least not linguistically. 80% of Americans speak only one language, in comparison to the majority of countries across the world where most people are bilingual or multilingual. We haven't made any steps to change this statistic either. According to Pew Research Center, only 20% of American students in grades kindergarten through 12th learn a foreign language in school, in comparison to 92% of students in all of Europe. In the US, only about 22% of elementary schools teach foreign languages, usually Spanish, French, or Mandarin. In Luxembourg, 100% of elementary schools teach not just one, but 4 languages: Luxembourgish, German, French, and English. Now think about how few of us, more or less on the cusp of adulthood, can speak even more than one. And as time goes on, we perpetuate our monolingualism. Atlantic journalist Amelia Friedman reports that only 7% of American college students enroll themselves in a language course. And Gallup reports that only 1 in 4 Americans can hold a conversation in a foreign language. Now, I don't know about you, but as a future foreign language major, it kind of breaks my heart. Think about all of us in this room today. Let's make the math simple and call it 400. If we followed this representation of the world's population, 68 of us would speak Mandarin Chinese, 24 of us would speak Spanish, 20 would speak English, and 224 of us would be bilingual. The world is a big place, yes, But we can breach these gaps if only we learn how to communicate with each other. Something that I think we gloss over when discussing linguistics is that language isn't just what you speak or read, it's how you think. And cognitively, having more than one language under your belt definitely gives you a massive edge. Your brain works differently, being bilingual versus monolingual. Bilingual speakers have proven to be more adept at certain tasks, primarily those that challenge your brain to think a certain way. Take a look at this. If I asked you to name the color of the font, not the word that's written, I bet a fair number of you would still shout out red instead of blue. That's the problem with monolingualism. Our brains are used to doing things a certain way, and we hit snags when we're met with these types of challenges. Studies also show that bilingual speakers are better multitaskers, and I mean, who wouldn't want that? I'm sure it comes as no surprise to all of you that we live in a very globalized world, now more than ever with the aid of technology. Because of this, employers look for candidates with diverse skill sets that will be beneficial to connecting with a global market. Bilingualism falls into this category. The more people you can communicate with, the more valuable an asset you are to an employer. This can result in not only a wider range of job opportunities, but a greater likelihood of getting a job that you apply for. So here's Massachusetts, in the highest bracket of bilingual job listings. Fluency in a second language, or even just proficiency, is a great way of standing out from the crowd, and it can even help you earn more money. On average, bilingual people earn 11% more in salary than monolingual people, making bilingualism far more financially and economically advantageous. Maybe I'm alone on this, but I want to take advantage of my future as much as possible, especially if it means learning another language. On the other hand, we get away with only knowing English because the United States is such a global superpower. If you've ever taken AP Human Geo with Miss True, you'll recognize this term, lingua franca. A lingua franca is the language in which trade is normally conducted. In our interconnected world, this language is primarily English. In fact, English as a lingua franca, or ELF, is a commonly used label for interactions between non-native English speakers. Because of this, our mindset is often, if everybody speaks English, then why should I bother learning another language? What's interesting about ELF, though, is that most of these non-native speakers don't speak American English. According to the British Council, British English has status as an official language or a lingua franca in 75 countries. So yes, that's 75 countries worth of people who spell color with the dreaded U. Nuances aside, though, regardless of how prevalent English is, it doesn't mean that we should ignore other languages. Learning a language is never going to do anything but benefit you, I promise. If we look at this issue from a social standpoint, it doesn't get much more promising. Monolingualism more or less acts like an isolation chamber. Humans are naturally opposed to that which we do not understand. That much is true. But when we isolate ourselves from learning about other languages, and subsequently other cultures, they become something we subconsciously label as other, rather than something we like to get to know better or learn more about. When perpetuated, this leads to ignorance and even prejudice, because if we can't understand them or their language, we might as well not care at all, right? The Canadian Journal of Sociology reports that French-speaking Canadians hold negative perceptions of English-speaking Canadians due to what author Bud B. Cleath calls a fear of contamination. Monolingualism perpetuates a we-they ideology, wherein our own bias impedes our ability to be open and connecting with other cultures and groups of people. And that's harmful. This is the reason that we have such pervasive cultural barriers, obstacles, and walls. I'm not saying that this is an easy fix. Changing your own attitude takes time. Changing an entire society's is a completely different story. Yes, I wish that more than anything we learned more languages, and that we learned them sooner. But turning monolingualism into multilingualism doesn't have to start with some sort of nationwide initiative. We can take baby steps. Download the language learning app you've always been curious about. I recommend Duolingo if you don't mind being stalked by that little green owl. Try putting a little more effort and practice into your foreign language classes. Opportunities like these aren't going to be handed to you forever. More importantly, make connections instead of distinctions. Involve yourself in a language and a culture different from your own, and watch what happens. Maybe, and el fin, you'll find that languages are your key to the world. Thank you.